A Muslim advocacy PAC is planning what they call a Million Muslim March. Sound a little familiar? Well, we'll get to that. This would be in Washington, D.C. The American Political Action Committee, or AMPAC, not AFLAC, and not Amtrak, but AMPAC. They're demanding, quote, that laws be enacted protecting our First Amendment. We are asking President Obama to fulfill his promise from his first campaign for presidency of a transparent government. Lastly, we are asking for the release of the 9/11 Commission report to the American people. End quote. AMPAC's Chief of Operations, Isa Hodge, writes that Muslims and non-Muslims alike were traumatized by 9/11, but we as Muslims continue 12 years later to be victimized by being made the villains. Yet our government either sits idly by and does nothing to protect our freedoms, or it exacerbates the problem with its constant war on terrorism in Islamic countries. This is what they're saying. Now, that would be bad enough, okay, as if implying that Islamic terror and radical Islam and Muslim terrorists weren't involved or responsible or to blame for 9/11. But when do you think that this Million Muslim March is slated for in Washington, D.C.? I'll give you 3 seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Okay. 9/11. 9/11. Let me tell you what this does. I don't believe all Muslims are bad or good. I don't believe any group is all bad or good. But what this does in the eyes of America, in the eyes of the Americans that will be watching this, and by the way, if they get 100,000 people, I'd be shocked. Let alone, I'm never going to get 1 million. But what it does is it alienates the Muslim community. It makes them look insensitive. It makes them look bad if this gets any news coverage at all. If there's any significant amount of people there at all. And to get news coverage, an event like this won't even need a significant amount of people. You could have 10 people, and they'll call it a Million Muslim March, and the camera will pan the same 10 people and make it look big. My point is, you want to have a march? You think Muslims are being attacked in this country? You think Muslims don't have their civil rights in this country? You think Muslims are being villainized and victimized in this country? Then hold a march. Hold it any of the 365 days of the year except don't hold it on 9/11. That's not an accident. This group knows exactly what it's doing by holding this march on 9/11. They know exactly what they're doing. Don't think they don't. It's inflammatory. It's in your face. And that's, in my opinion, why it's being done. Now, a little off the beaten path here. Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan would always have his Million Man March, the original Million Man March, if I'm not mistaken. It was right around I think it might have been on the Jewish High Holy Days. Okay? And he said that the theme and the goal was, introspection and making yourself better and asking for forgiveness. All these kinds of things that kind of went along with kind of what some of the High Holy Day spirit is all about. I said at that time when he held that march, and by the way, he never got near 1 million men, that this was being done at the time, in the time frame, in order to stick it to Jews. I really felt that. Well, whether or not that was the case, that was my opinion. And whether or not it's the case, it is my opinion that to have this march on 9/11 is no accident, and it's insensitive. It's almost as insensitive as wanting to build that mosque at Ground Zero. Remember the Ground Zero mosque proposal? Thank goodness nothing has come of that yet. I don't know that it's a dead project, and I know even though Mayor Bloomberg, the Republican mayor of New York City, was all for that mosque, I'm sure once, if there's a Democratic mayor elected for next year, it'll make it easier. But I don't know where that project is. But remember, almost the universal support from the politicians for that mosque to be built. to be built right down the street from where the planes crashed into the buildings? Again, that site was chosen for that mosque to be in your face, to rile up people, to make a point, to make a political statement. That's no accident. You have a whole city of New York to build a mosque. And you want to build it? You want to put the dome of that mosque right there? I got to tell you, no accident. No accident. So this thing here, and by the way, they call, listen to what the head here, AMPAC's chief of operations, writes that Muslims and non-Muslims were traumatized by 9/11, as I told you, but we as Muslims continue 12 years later to be victimized by being made the villains. Yet our government either sits by and does nothing. I told you all that. Okay. These lies told to the American population has made it impossible for us to do true dawah, referring to the practice of proselytizing or preaching Islam. It is time for us as Muslims in America to stop being defensive, start being proactive by using our right to vote and our freedom of assembly to let our voices be heard by our country and the world. Stand with us. Help fight the injustices being committed against us. What injustices in this country are being committed against Muslims? By our government? Our government, this administration, unfortunately, has handcuffed our law enforcement, our FBI, because of pressure from Muslim groups like, in my opinion, CARE and others who claim to be civil rights groups for Muslims. The FBI can't mention the word terrorism. They couldn't ask the older Boston Marathon bomber questions. They couldn't go into his mosque. As a matter of fact, in this country, Muslims get special treatment in many respects. And they have the nerve to say that the American government is persecuting Muslims in this country? Really, I would love to see examples. But again, as far as this million-man march goes, how dare they? How dare the organizers of this schedule a march like this on 9/11? And I guess the implication is that Islam and Muslims had nothing to do with this attack, and they want the American government to tell the truth. So the implication is that they're truthers. Remember the truthers? Dick Cheney personally spent about a month and a half with his heart condition climbing the cobwebs of the two towers and planting, bombs in there so they could detonate it and make it look like a plane took them down. Remember that? Yeah. Yeah, how could the steel melt? I wasn't hot enough. It's this, it's that. It had to be internal explosions. Yeah, the truthers. Not to be confused with the birthers, the truthers. So maybe these people are truthers in addition to everything else. So, big mistake, a lot of nerve, not going to win any friends that way, in my opinion. Do you agree? I'd love to know.